Greetings, my friends. I want to take a moment today to thank you for your support of my channel, Super Clay Girl. Just today, it's May 5th, 2016, I reached 1 million views. And you know, that's very significant to me because I only have 37 videos. So that shows me that the content of what I'm offering is something that you're really interested in, and that makes it so worthwhile. So thanks again. I hope you enjoy this project today, and I hope you enjoy my videos in the years to come because I love doing it for you. So we'll start today with some nice Premo pearl colors. I've got peacock, bright green, and purple pearl. And then the white is just called pearl. And I like to use these because they're kind of translucent when they're used in a thin sheet. And I like the way the light looks through them a little bit more than the other colors that are not pearlized. I've used a 2-ounce package of each one to make a 3x6 strip. I like to start out with similar amounts to begin with. And here's what I have left, and we'll be using that in the design to kind of mix it up later on and combine the colors, kind of bring the patterns together that way. My translucent, that's probably about, I don't know, 8 ounces. I just mixed up a whole bunch because what I do is tint it a little bit, and you see the difference between untinted and tinted translucent. I bring it up to that grayish white kind of color with just a tiny, really small pinch of blue. So give that a try, but be sure if you're working with a 2-ounce package to make that blue really small, just a tiny little crumb, and you'll see how it whitens your translucent. I think you'll really like the effect in the end. This is some parchment paper I got at the restaurant supply store. And I'm really happy with this because of the size. So I've been using it a lot. I wanted to show it to you. It doesn't curl up on the edges like the kind in the roll does. So you don't have to tape it down and stuff. So I just thought I'd pass that on to you because it's been pretty useful for me, especially when I prepare all these slabs ahead of time. I can, move them around a little more easily. So I'm going to make some blends. I want to do the purple pearl with the white pearl. And I'm going to mix it up like this. And just offset the corners a little bit to control the way the blend is going to come out. Make sure I have some pure purple on one side and some pure white on the other side. I just make a double stack like this so I can get the blend all made at one time. You don't have to. I don't know how much material you're needing. I'm going to cut a little bit of that white off on the side because I want less white in this particular blend. But of course that's up to you. You could use it, with equal parts. Sometimes, I'm not real specific about sizes and amounts. I'm sorry about that, but the reason is that I don't know what you're making. You may be making a pendant and, 6 beads, and maybe I'm making, some kind of a wall piece. But I'm going to try to do better with that, show you what I'm up to for what we are doing in the project. Now this is just a regular Skinner blend now. And I've rolled it down together so that it sticks a little better. And I put it through the pasta machine just a few times. I like my blends kind of rough. Rolled it up into a jelly roll. And if you want your edge to be real blended, you just slice back, make a bevel cut there. So, we've all made 1 million jelly rolls. But these are just some very simple kind of pieces that we can do a lot with later. So I'm going to smooth that down and I'm going to set that aside and make our next piece. And really we only make 2 colored pieces in this whole thing, and you can do a lot with it once they're blended. So I've got my corners offset even a little more on this one because I want there to be plenty of green and plenty of blue. And you'll see in the end result, even with this kind of precaution and even with keeping the blend kind of choppy and loose, by the time you reduce it a bit, it looks, pretty blended. So you don't need to over blend it to begin with. I'll cut those off and I'll be running it through. There it is. And I hear people say all the time, well, I've got this really wide blend now and I wanted a long strip. And you can get one like this. This is the only time that you're going to be putting it through the machine up and down. Okay, so all the other times you've put it in side to side like it is, but this time we're going to go up and down. And that'll leave you with a nice long strip. And this one, instead of jelly rolling, we're going to fan fold it. Kind of accordion fan fold, same thing. I just want to get a lot of each color into my folds so that I can just kind of appreciate that blend as much as we can. You know, as I said, we're going to reduce it a lot, so I'm trying to retain all the different colors that I can see now as much as I can. Just going to fold it up and make it into a little rectangle, and then we will reduce it and start working with it. Get to the edge of one like these, just stretch out your corners and it'll fit fine. You can always cut it off too, but I want all that blue in there, so I'm going to use that and then just trim. And once we've got this elongated, you'll see I keep working in 3 and 6 inch segments. The reason I do that is because the checkerboard is in 1.5 inch squares. So it's really nice for me to be able to keep an eye on my sizes by looking at the squares. I don't have to measure them as much. Now, you know, you get any bubbles, and poke them. I've reduced that down now. It's blue on one side, green on the other. And I'm going to cut that in half. Lay it side by side. And I put a groove in it with one of my cane bender rods. I'm going to lay that white sheet in there. And I'm kind of leaving a little bit of slack so that I can lay the rod down the center and make sure I get a good indentation with the white. You're going to see a lot of use of sheets of clay in this. And it's back to that same thing I always talk about, line and fill, which is just the basis of all caning. So you've got your focals for this. It's the purple jelly roll and the blue and green fan fold. And as we add in sheets, those become lines. And as we add in fill, those become shapes. And we'll do that over and over again with our translucent, with our white, and even drop in some sheets of color to kind of bump things up as we go along. You see that crack on the back? When you lay two things together like that, they are never going to knit together. So we're going to use that in our design. And you'll see that in a minute. We'll trim it off. And you'll see where we're at with that so far. Now here we're going to make a little snake. And I'm going to cut the edge off of that because I really don't want it going up out of the groove. I want it to lay within the groove. And I want it to tuck down in there fairly evenly so I don't have to, you know, fiddle around with it squeezing out the sides too much. Could have made a smaller snake, probably squished it in there, about the same result in the end. None of this stuff is chipped in granite. You know, it's really good to just enjoy yourself and just use these techniques in the ways that you want to. So we've got this, and you know, that crack, I'm just going to accentuate it with that square rod and use it in the design and not try to get those two to stick together, because I'm telling you, you know, it's not going to happen. And I like it like this anyway because I want to make sure that this piece is two-sided, has detail on both sides, and just little bits and pieces that your eye can go to in your finished cane. So I'm deepening that groove a little bit so that when I fill it, I'll make sure I don't have a hole in the bottom. I make sure it's kind of hollow enough to accept what I decide to put in there, which will be more translucent. The piece I'm going to put in there, I'm going to wrap this time. And I'm going to make this little roll out of my translucent. And that's the way I always make snakes. You know, it's easier to make an even snake out of a flat piece than it is to just, you know, make one out of a ball. So that's why you'll see me rolling up a lot of little snakes in here. It just saves you a little bit of time to start with a sheet. So I'm going to wrap this partially. It doesn't need to be wrapped all the way. I'm going to leave part of this open. And you'll see that after we reduce it. I do that because sometimes I don't want dots, I don't want it to appear to be a dot. I want it to be open on one side. I pinched it down into a triangle so it will fit in that channel that I've made. And I'm going to trim that off and pop it in there. So you see it's open on that one side. And that's because, I didn't want to close off that edge. I'm choosing the most even part of that. And you're really looking at your lines now. Those little white lines on the sides, dimensions of the fill, all that stuff, the more even you can keep it, the better. Because no matter how wild these designs get, and they do, it's one thing to have it be organic, but it's another thing to have it not be symmetrical when you try to match it up. So you're just keeping an eye on where everything's landing. I'm pinching down one side of that because I know I want one side to be curved. I'm going to set that aside and do a little bit of work on the purple jelly roll. So we've got a white wrap. This one I'm going to go ahead and wrap all the way because we're going to be flattening that down, and there won't really be any place for the open end to go. It'll just be too hard to reduce it and keep the open end, straight. So I'm going to wrap it all the way, and that way when we push down one side, make it kind of more capsule shape, we don't have to worry about where that line's going to land. So I've done that. I started pressing it down and I reduced it. I needed it to be about 6 inches long because I'm going to reduce it again once I've cut it. And you'll see that here. I'm laying a green line on that. Remember we talked a little bit about that spare clay. I'm using it to start bringing the colors together. So that's a purple jelly roll, and I'm going to add some green and blue to it. And then when I get to the green and blue piece, I'll be able to add a little purple in it. And that way it starts to kind of draw the design together, not just have two separate components that don't really have anything to do with each other. I'm curving that green line a little bit because I like the way it looks on the edge of that white. I'm going to even that up. Then I'm going to reduce the little one to fit with the other two. Now I need green on both sides of this, so I'm just going to add a little strip right there. And a little bit of blue, like we talked about. Now listen, I know I'm going along at kind of a quick clip here, but these videos are here to show you all different things that you can do. You probably don't even want to do this thing. I don't know why you would. Once it's been done, it's been done, but you can see a lot of things that you would like to do and how to do them, and then how to put them together in a way that you want to. So that's why I'm not really concerned with specifically how to build this one cane. It's just showing you stuff that you can do with your canes. So I'm going to add a little bit of white to that original piece because of the way I'm going to use it, and you'll see that. And just always have thin sheets around. These are about a number 5. And they are really sticky and stuff. Whites can be really unstable, and there's just nothing we can do about that. It's not just clay. White everything. I used to do nails and the French manicures. I was always looking for the perfect white to use in manicures because even white paint goes bad, so kind of have to live with it. I'm starting to throw fill into those cracks. Any spaces between, you're going to want to put something in. I particularly like the shape of that. I don't want it to go together too tightly, so putting the fill in is going to keep the shapes that I've created in the configuration that I intended them to be. So what do we have? A lot of white sheets, colored sheets, translucent snake material. If you have that laying around, then you can really have fun when you're doing this part because you can just go, forward. I'm going to place a channel in that one bottom piece, and that's going to hold up our little half circle thing. Make a good enough dent that it can contain what you want to put in it. And you'll see, maybe yours is smaller and maybe it's bigger. I'm working on a pretty big scale with this because it's going to be reduced quite a bit. And I don't want to take it down too small now. So I've got my channel. It looks good. And before I drop that in, I'm going to throw a purple line in there because, as I was saying before, I want to start adding the colors back with each other. So I want that purple line to be touching my blue and green section. And none of these are rules. These are suggestions. These are ideas. But I'm sure you've made pieces before where you thought, well, you know, I should have spread that color out a little bit more. So I certainly have, and that's why I am doing it like that. Now I can place that in the channel. And I'm going to put fill in one side, just a little triangle of translucent in just one side. Because as I've said before, you know, we're not looking for symmetry now. We're going to get symmetry after it's cut. We're looking for interest. And I don't want it to be the same on both sides anymore now that I've got it to this point. So we're going to pop in a translucent triangle, and the other side we're just going to pull on all the way up. And there's some translucent just to protect that design, because you know we talked about the white, it's sticky and soft, and I like a little bit of spread in it. It looks cool. But when you put translucent over the top like that, now see, I can really deepen my lines. I can work with it a little bit more, and it's kind of protected. You don't have so much you know, stretching. So you saw that triangle I was talking about there on that one side. Now I'm pulling up the other side so that there's interest on either one and not just having them be the same. So I'm making more channels in this, and what I do with something like this, and I always do it, I'm always glad I did it, is I look and see what could stand to be broken up. And usually you'll see, in this case it was all that blue and green. I didn't want just big hunks of them laying around. I wanted them to be wavy. And I can sink my rods into them anywhere that I want to break them up. And just remember to fill those spaces with something so that you can eventually get to your triangular shape if that's what you're making. So I'm going to cut it. I'm going to see if it's broken up enough, if it's got enough detail. I think it's fine. It looks good. So I've pinched and pulled. You know, we reduce a lot of cane, so I didn't go into that too much, but brought it down to about 1.5 inches, and I'm going to get some slices from my LC slicer. And everybody wants to see me use this machine, so Spikey's here, and I'm just filming this on the handheld to get you a shot of it, because you know that's what it can do. So I guess that's why they're fairly pricey. Those kind of slices are kind of hard to get by hand. You can do it, and the more you practice, the easier it gets. And for years, I didn't have a machine, so I am showing you because I've been asked to show you. And you see how thin they are. Light shines right through them, and you see how that whitened translucent looks. You know, it's not gray like it was in the cane. So anyway, there's all those things covered. I thought you might want to see. So I'm going to take my slices. I'm going to apply them to the bottle. I just started out with a kaleidoscope. That could have been in any direction really, since it's equilateral. I just put the kind of chrysanthemum thing there. Chrysanthemum from Mars maybe. And then I'm going to just join those together. So a lot of people think that the green cane and the purple cane are maybe different ones, but you see just from the waviness that you made on the edges how you've kind of formed a whole different motif where the greens and blues go together. You're sticking them on, you're just really avoiding bubbles, you're keeping your lines straight. That's the most important thing about any surface you're covering. And don't forget to wrap it around the edges. I'm going to leave the back open, but I'm going to wrap it around those soft corners so all the pieces are touching, okay? It's a lot more secure that way, it won't go flying off. Now if you're going to want to use your cane in a different way, I really encourage that too. Here's some translucent mixed cane that was really fun to make, and you'll see in between the flowers, the petals and the little segments of the cane is translucent, and it's tinted that white way too. And what it does is it creates a neutral spacer to spread the design out. And those are really thick slabs. And I'm telling you, when you do this, I call it scaning, which is sculpting with cane. And I named it that myself. But anyway, I have a complete video on this design here. It's here on YouTube. And what you're doing is just taking any slice that you make and twisting it up into something three-dimensional. Here's a cheese dome. You'll see that all those pieces are touching, and that's just the other tip I want to give you. Make sure all your pieces are touching when you cover glass, because if you've got something that's loose, that's the part eventually that's going to come off, okay? Well, that's the only trick, just make sure it's kind of stuck together. I hope you've enjoyed this. I love doing this for you, and I thank you for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon. So, bye-bye.